and usually it's kind of getting things done by deadlines, making sure that certain things are done. There's processes you have to follow, and you have to make sure they're accurate. So it's a very busy, not necessarily stressful time, but very busy time when you're doing a lot of things, and that's teaching you what to kind of do and how to get things done on time and time management, etc. And early on in your career, particularly in the cybersecurity space, I think it's taken that accidental, calmer kind of based approach of, meeting someone and just connecting completely out the window. Now it has to be very determined. You have to actually want to find a mentor or find spaces where you can connect with people. You can't leave it to the universe or whatever you believe in to kind of show you the path, etc. You have to kind of go, actually, I'm interested in finding out more people like yourself who kind of had that broad experience. And let me reach out to Dan and kind of see if we can have a connection, or vice versa, right? So I think the learning from people within your organization, you actually have to make that first move and that connection. You can't wait for people to come to you and say, I want to teach you about everything I know. And you're like, yeah, I also think there's like a big part of, the way that we work remotely. We don't have this interaction. It's very bite-sized transactional, like you were saying, and that transaction is via text. You read it. Someone sends you an email, sends you a text message, sends you a Slack or a Teams message, and you don't have the context of, are they joking? Are they smiling? Are they happy? Are they angry? Like you put that into the message because of your own state of mind. Like, oh, I'm expecting an angry email. So then you read the email and it sounds angry because you were expecting it to be angry. But I think some of that, people who've kind of grown up in this remote and this transactional environment don't have that knowledge that sometimes actually talking to people gives you the right context, and that ability to communicate with more than just words on a screen, and that those words on the screen actually provide the rapport between people.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to Vibe It Up, the podcast where we explore the dynamic world of tech. I'm your host, Dan Tudorache, and I bring over 20 years of experience in the software development industry, wearing multiple hats as a solution architect, leadership coach, trainer, and now as a psychologist too. So, you might be wondering, what's the vibe all about? Well, Vibe It Up, it's not just a podcast, it's a community, a space where we connect with tech professionals and we explore their journey. Because in tech, people are making the innovation and is not making by itself. So I have with me today Claude Mandy. Welcome, Claude.
Thanks, Dan. Great to be here.
I'm very honored to have you, and I want to find a lot actually about yourself. So
Yeah, let me give you a quick overview. Uh, I've worked in tech for quite a while, but I started out my career. You can see the grey hair, so a long time ago. Um, yeah, but I started out in kind of the auditing background, so really kind of focused on understanding where things go wrong as a starting point in my career. And that kind of led me directly into risk management, understanding where things go wrong. And that inevitably led me into the security realm as such. So my kind of background, I'm a former CISO practitioner. I then decided, the way I can help the industry the best is to share my knowledge a little bit broader. So I joined Gartner. For those that don't know it, it's a pretty huge industry analyst firm that kind of writes about tech and kind of provides guidance and consulting to organizations and CISOs, CIOs, etc. I spent a couple of years there, and I decided, well, let me try something new. Let me explore a bit more in-depth tech on the leading edge. So that's when I joined my current company, Symmetry Systems, as a chief evangelist, which just is just a fancy way of saying I want to push the boundaries of security and technology a little bit further. And I think, that what they're doing in the data security space, which is providing visibility into the data that organizations have, which is a surprising problem. But then what the security of those individual data pieces is and what people are doing with it. So providing that visibility and the protection of this individual data object in a big data lake, who has access to it, what are they doing with it, and how is it protected through that? So it's kind of at the forefront of modern data security, as we call it, which is a fun place to be in. But I spend all my day talking, writing, providing insights, and kind of piecing that. So I'm excited to be here and kind of share some of my background and experience. I've seen a lot. Um, so, let's
Welcome.
chat and see where the conversation goes. It should be fun.
Yes, yes. Welcome, Claude. And um, it's the data today. It's the gold or the petrol, or how do we call it?
I've heard a lot of people say, data is the new gold. There's everyone's oil kind of drives the organizations, and then I've seen security professionals go the complete opposite and say it's the new uranium. It's going to blow things up and kill that. Um, you, you know, it is bits and bytes at the end of the day, but what what my kind of philosophy is that data only becomes dangerous or valuable when people use it or have access to it. And that's kind of where we kind of play in the symmetry. But I love all those kind of analogies of different things because it shows you, are they pessimists or optimists?
Yeah, yeah. Well, the noise in the space, the tech space, is that if you have data and you don't use it, you're, I don't know, I won't put a label on that, but you must be not well educated in the digitalization, tech space, analytics, and so on. So with data, you can have a lot of insights. You can take a lot of decisions and see where it goes from either business, either, I don't know, clients, either internal. So you can do a lot of things with data. um,
uh, Absolutely. And then there's the opposite side of it, which is the privacy guys who say if you're doing stuff with data you shouldn't have access to, then you get into trouble. So
Indeed, indeed. Yeah, in Europe there's the GDPR rules, which is in place. In I don't know in US if there is something similar.
it's the US is very, there's no federal, cross US privacy regulation. There is talk of that happening. But some of the states are adopting more modern data security, privacy kind of laws. So California, where I live, has the CCPA, and there's a couple of other states who are following in those footsteps. I think the GDPR is still the kind of gold standard of privacy. That I'm not sure the US will ever get to that level, but hopefully.
Well, it depends. Maybe it will get in another direction, which is we don't know. How was your start, Claude? How did you start in tech? Did you do the university in technology, or how? What was your start?
It's a fascinating question because no one our age has a linear kind of entry into cybersecurity specifically. They always Most of the stories in mine is the same. I grew up when computers were just being introduced. So I remember when my dad brought home his first computer, and I think I probably did some things I shouldn't. He's probably got a story to tell about me doing things to his work laptop that required him to back up things and restore them and all that kind of stuff. Um, but my actual academic kind of background is in business. It's in accounting, financial management, economics, a lot of introductory subjects to computer science, but it's very much on the business side of that. So where a lot of the tech folks who have studied computer sciance directly and coding, etc., they do an MBAs now to kind of get the background that I have, and I've kind of gone the other way.
Yeah, I've done that too. So I've done the university, the first university in computer science, and after that, I've done the first master in distributed system, and the second master was in MBA, and the second the university was psychology now. So it's mixed all the things there.
Yeah, I don't think I don't think you ever stop learning, particularly in technology. If you stop learning, then you fall behind the technology because the technology keeps changing.
Yeah, and it's not about the technology. And I found out during my time when I built technology, I found out that it's not only about technology. Are the people that are using the technology, right? They are are the systems that people are using technology with, and are getting to use the technology, and all the metrics, all the analytics, all the other information in this regard. So business, it's about everything. It's not about tech. It's not about just measuring tasks and um, all the other metrics in the business which you are. So yeah, it's quite broad to say like that.
Yeah, I've always kind of taken the philosophy that whatever I'm doing, it's the skills and knowledge that I'm picking up, or the skills that I'm picking up, need to be transferable to somewhere else, right? So when you're learning about technology, the actual learning process of how quickly you can pick up technology is a transferable skill. You can take that and then learn a new technology. It's not necessarily the technology you learned that you can kind of take somewhere else, but how you learn it and kind of how you approach things. And I think that's the same with coding. You learn the constructs and all that, and then you can code in any language once you learn.
Yeah, you just need to adapt to syntax and functions and frameworks and whatever there are in there. But each programming language has his own good parts, bad parts. I mean, it's not okay to use just one single programming language for everything you do.
Yeah, but there are going to be people. They're going to be the same. They're going to be completely different, but they're going to be people in every organization. There's going to be the structures, etc., that business operates within, and all of those kind of things. So if you can kind of learn those kind of transferable skills of how to interact and work as a team and engage with the team or manage people and things like those are incredibly transferable skills that you take on to every job.
Yeah. Uh, During your, I don't know, first years of tech industry, do you remember what challenges did you had during that time? I don't know, technology challenges, people challenges, team.
Uh, I remember I was very busy because I was getting, yeah, I think there was, when you're in your early start of your career, you get paid for what you do, right? So you have to do a lot of things. You and usually it's kind of getting things done by deadlines, making sure that certain things are done. There's processes you have to follow, and you have to make sure they're accurate. So it's a very busy, not necessarily stressful time, but very busy time when you're doing a lot of things, and that's teaching you what to kind of do and how to get things done on time and time management, etc. And early on in your career, particularly in the cybersecurity space, there's no 9 to 5 jobs anymore in that cybersecurity space. Something goes wrong in the middle of the night, they're not going to wake up the senior manager. They're going to wake up the young guys who might have that. So, and I think that changes as you progress in your career, where people start to kind of reward you for what your experiences and what you know and what you can, the decisions that you have based on that experience and your ability to reason and kind of make impactful decisions.
And quicker decisions in stressful situations. I mean, did you had times in your background, I don't know, security breaches, data stolen, or other viruses?
There's there's everyone's always got a story to tell about things that have kind of gone wrong. You know, I, particularly in the security space, it used to be about, we need to prevent things from happening, and then they realized that was impossible. So then it started to becoming, well, how do we become more resilient from a technology perspective? And the only way to become more resilient is to have good practices and processes and things to help you recover quickly and to detect and respond and components like that. And I think that's something you kind of, the industry has kind of adopted, but then individuals have also adopted. They realize that you can't just have someone, a team working 24 hours a day. You need to have that resilience in your people as well and support them to because it's a stressful job. Like, as you said, there's always going to be a breach, a virus that goes wrong, or someone who clicks on a phishing email.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, and I remember when I was consultant and I working for outsourcing company, and the security services were the most difficult to sell for the clients because they never experienced security breaches, and for them it was something like, man, it's possible to have but we don't have. And when it happens something like that, the first thing after that they invested a lot of money into security, firewalls and services and people and, and so on. So for a lot of companies and managers, the decision to invest in security came just after they had an incident.
Mm.
Did
I, I'd,
you
I'd love
experience
to.
this kind of thinking?
Uh, there's a common saying in, I suppose, CISO circles: you never waste a good incident, which is about making sure that when something happens, you take the opportunity to invest in the right areas, etc. So I think there's an understanding that, yeah, it's a good time to a bad time is a good time to kind of invest in things. Um, I'd be interested in your kind of psychiatrist kind of view. Is it a human bias where we kind of aren't very good at, predicting when things will go bad and we think it will never happen to us? Or
Oh, always we are thinking that things we won't happen to us, and we are on the safe side until something happens. And people are reacting in terms of also going to psychologist, a coach or mentor or something like that when they feel like they're, I don't know, it's the last chance for them to get something, or it happens something and they decided, okay, I cannot do that anymore, or it needs to hurt to be pain around there. And it's like the same thing with security, because it's not palpable until you get burned, right? And it is the same thing, I guess. And I see a lot of people nowadays, after they get fired, after they get, I don't know, in difficult situation. I'm not talking now about heavy PTSD or other mental disorders, but in terms of being a healthy adult, right? Until they never get burned, they won't invest in services of someone to help them, guide them, and so on. It's the same in security. I've seen that a lot. So yeah, it's human nature to say like that.
Yeah, yeah. I think there's also something to be said for, being married and your partner nagging you until you do something about it. It has to hurt as well
Yeah.
from that perspective to really get you to kind of lean into it as well. And I don't think
Indeed.
organizations have that.
Well, I said something at a point in marriage too. It should be a law where you need to go to psychologist. Both partners need to go to psychologist before getting into marriage, and after that, when they say everything is okay, get into marriage.
I can see the logic, but yeah.
Well, yes, if you just go and think through it. But yes, in every domain, when people have two reactions, either they run through pleasure, right, or run from pain. Usually in companies, managers and so on, they want benefits, they want income, they want a lot of profits. They go to pleasure, and when a security incident came, it's a pain. So the opposite reaction is to run from pain. So it's like this. It's in also in psychology and with human behaviors, because when we have two different things like this, we either work our head off to get something that we want to pleasure, to get to pleasure, or we work from pain because we had a rough childhood, rough, I don't know, ex work place, and so on. So those two are different. Okay. Uh, do you recall in your early days if you had someone to support you, if you had a mentor that helped you very much during your journey?
I've have so many mentors still, so it's not just in my young career. It's I think you always need that, but absolutely when I was in my early career, even when I was making that switch from more risk management to security, I've had some great mentors who, you know, sometimes they're just good listeners, and sometimes they have experience that they can share with you of making some of that knowledge, and sometimes they just there to answer your questions and kind of be a sounding board. um, I think there's all different types of mentors that you can kind of have, and I think I've been lucky to find some without even trying. Like, I remember one of my great friends slash mentors. I just used to sit close to him in the office, and every time I had a coffee, I could ask him something about security and what he was working on, and it kind of just piqued my interest in the career, and that's kind of turned into a long term friendship slash mentorship. Um, and I still, you know, play a lot of credence to him getting into my long career in security, just because of his openness to share his thoughts, his background, his experience, etc. Did I call him a mentor back then? Probably not.
Yeah, but now you see it as a mentor because it shaped your future. Hmm. And thinking of that, um, and of the speed of taking decisions, how did you learn, or what made you be more confident and take better decisions and more decisions?
I think I probably made a couple of mistakes, and I think you always learn from your mistakes. But I think the confidence came from, you know, I made a mistake. In retrospect, I wouldn't have made the same decision, but I didn't die. I didn't get fired.
Okay, I'm
Um,
happy you didn't.
you know, it was when you look back and you look at those mistakes that you made, you need to put them in the context of actually it made me a stronger person and made me kind of more resilient to failure. It made me more resilient to disappointment. It made me try harder the next time. It made me learn from that mistake. I'm not going to make that same mistake. But all of that kind of adds up to being more confident the next time that making those mistakes is okay as long as you learn from them and how you react to those mistakes. If you give up when every time you make a mistake in a career or in a job, and you kind of go, oh, that's the worst mistake I could ever make. I'm never going to be able to work again, or kind of show my face in the company. That's yeah, I failed. I gave up, and then you kind of realize, well, actually, I'm getting paid to make mistakes and learn from those mistakes. And technology is not foolproof. Humans aren't foolproof. Let's learn from this and kind of make sure that we become more resilient and um, more able to kind of make those next steps in our career. And then we can also teach others about those mistakes that we've made to help them, avoid them or learn from them, etc. So I've always been uh, kind of the philosophy: you can make a mistake, but don't make the same mistake twice. Uh, I had a
Indeed.
volleyball coach who told me that a lot of times.
Yeah, if you make it twice, it's a choice already. So you never learn from the first one. So yeah, and as I remembered on the previous thing about the mentoring, and you had the chance of working in the office and being next to somebody to help you to dedicate their time, their knowledge, their um, everything to guide you, to help you, to give you advices, and to be there for you when you grew. So what do you think about these days when a lot of work is done either remote, either hybrid? How are these relationships still coming, and if it impacts the process of growing new people?
Yeah, I think it's taken that accidental, calmer kind of based approach of, meeting someone and just connecting completely out the window. Now it has to be very determined. You have to actually want to find a mentor or find spaces where you can connect with people. You can't leave it to the universe or whatever you believe in to kind of show you the path, etc. You have to kind of go, actually, I'm interested in finding out more people like yourself who've kind of had that broad experience, and let me reach out to Dan and kind of see if we can have a connection, or vice versa, right? So I think the learning from people within your organization, you actually have to make that first move and that connection. You can't wait for people to come to you and say, I want to teach you about everything I know. And you're like, why is the stranger talking to me kind of on the internet? We've been taught that that's bad.
Yes,
So
indeed. And
I'm interested in your thoughts. Like, how do how do you kind of see people connecting nowadays when everything's remote and they most of their interactions are via email and Slack or Teams?
yes, definitely the relationships, uh, especially between colleagues, became more formal and more transactional, right? And back in the days, or people that are still working in the office, having the chance to work together face to face, they have the chance of getting to into more details than the one just working remote, because when you work remote, everybody from the team is more inclined towards their tasks. and not the other one does. Just if you are the team leader, maybe yes, then it's your duty to help the youngest ones and be there with them. But if not, if there is no such relationship, then the process of growing new people is way slower than the normal than in physical um, work. So it's a little heavier, or more to say, not human, because we are relational and social human beings, and we need each other to help us, to guide us, to be there, to feel that we are not alone in what we are doing, no matter what our role is. And that's why it said when you are getting into leadership and top leadership positions, management, and so on, you don't have too many peers to work with, and then you need to work with your team to give them responsibilities, accountability, ownership on what they are doing in terms of getting and letting them to fail in on their terms, but risk controlled failure. Just- if you know what I mean.
Yeah, I also think there's like a big part of, the way that we work remotely. We don't have this interaction, it's very bite-sized transactional, like you were saying, and that transaction is via text. You read it. Someone sends you an email, sends you a text message, sends you a Slack or a Teams message, and you don't have the context of, are they joking? Are they smiling? Are they happy? Are they angry? Like you put that into the message because of your own state of mind. Like, oh, I'm expecting an angry email. So then you read the email and it sounds angry because you were expecting it to be. Um, but I think some of that people who've kind of grown up in this remote and this transactional environment don't have that knowledge that sometimes actually talking to people gives you the right context, and that um, ability to communicate with more than just words on a screen, and that those words on the screen actually provide the rapport between people.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah. And was thinking of that in every communication there is a transmitter and a receptor, right? And the transmitter may be in his thoughts, he wants to transmit something, but he's not transmitting all the things that he wants to transmit, because yeah, we need to write a big email and we want to keep it short, and based on the economy of time, words, a lot of things, we send it short, and the receptor sometimes interprets how he or she sees the message, because one message could have multiple interpretation, right? If you leave room for interpretation from the, if you are the transmitter, then is the right of the receptor to interpret the things that were not said, were said between the lines, were said, I don't know how, right? And that's why communication is an important factor of success of our teams today and people today, because if you manage to communicate in the right way and people get everything from there and there is no room of interpretation, people feel appreciated, people feel that they have ownership on what they are doing, and they get the message from you in with empathy too, there it's a good communication. Otherwise, if it's short, then it will become short and everyone thinks what they want to think. But yes, in this type of communication, we lose a lot of things. We lose mimic, we lose all words, tone, and so on. So it remains some symbols on the screen, symbols that mean something, but it's not the entire communication process. The communication between two humans are or multiple are in multiple have multiple facets. So you're right about that. I mean, we can lose a lot of things by communicating in written, and I've seen in the companies that they are barely having face to face with camera meetings, just communicating, just emails and so on. They don't want to see each other. I It's complicated.
And I think they also don't want to get to know each other, right? There's a lot of cultural kind of background to individuals. There's a lot of piece, and while you were talking that story about communication, I was thinking about the story with my wife. So I grew up in South Africa originally, and they have certain ways of saying things that make no sense. They make no sense. Um, the example I'm thinking of is if we were to tell someone we're going to be there after we in a little while, maybe 20 minutes, 30 minutes, we'll say we'll be there just now. And I told my wife this on a phone call, it kind of means I'm going to be there as I'm on my way. I'll get there in in the time frame as soon as I'm done with this. So I told my wife, when we were still dating, I'm going to be there just now. So she went outside and waited for me. And 5 minutes later, she gave me a call and said, "Where are you?" I'm like, but
Yes.
it's that you actually do have to get to know people, and some of their cultural background plays into all of this. Otherwise, you have those misunderstandings. If I did that at work and I told my boss I was going to send him something just now, and I didn't send it, I would be,
You said just now, so
But if he was grew up in South Africa or understand that that's sometimes the word I use, it wouldn't be a big deal. But I think that kind of comes into getting to know people as well in the work context, and understanding their backgrounds and things like that. Working remotely means everyone everywhere in the world.
indeed. And now we have remote teams from uh, I don't know, all parts of the world. You can have a team from six continents. That's whatever that is. Yes, and it's what technology brought us in this part, and we need to adapt it and be sure that we can deliver as much as human nature and human as possible. Otherwise, it will remain transactional and people won't feel like they belong to a team, to an organization. They will feel, okay, I'm just a contractor maybe and I'm working with them, but they don't feel the connection. They don't feel the um, other human parts that came into a good relationship. Either it's business and work, but people are working with people. So also for the companies, people are making business with other people, not companies with other companies. So
Yeah, I think those relationships, you and I spoke a little bit yesterday, and we kind of said, you know, for people who've only grown up in the remote world where they're in this transactional environment, they don't they don't realize you can actually be friends or like your colleagues. They just they look for those friendships outside of work. And I remember when I was young, some of my best friends were at work because we got to know each other, we liked each other, etc., and we spent time with each other outside of that transactional work environment where we could go for lunch or have a coffee together and just talk about what's happening in our lives. I think in the remote world, you actually have to make space for those kind of interactions nowadays.
yeah, indeed. And speaking of that, did you had, I don't know, difficult times, maybe conflicts and um, communication challenges with your clients, with other team members, and so on, because they didn't understood what you wanted to say.
Uh, I think you always have those challenges, but you never actually know them until you ask that person, like until you have that engagement. Sometimes you just think, oh, they're being a complete, but they understood what I wanted, but they never gave me what I wanted, or they just gave me the wrong thing, or they're bad at their job and they gave me this thing that wasn't all that kind of stuff. But sometimes you need to take that step back and say, is it because I didn't describe myself? So I've had quite a few of those circumstances, and also being in those circumstances where I'm the person not giving those responses. I think at my Gartner role, it was very much about answering your clients' questions, being able to provide them the insights that they needed. And they drummed us into it. Like, you need to clarify what they're asking and make sure that you're addressing the question that they're asking, not what you want to tell them. It's about what they want to know, not what you want to tell them. So I think that's helped me a lot, understanding that like you were saying, it's a two-way kind of street. There's someone transmitting and someone receiving, and it could be a fault on either end
Yeah.
of
Yeah.
who's miscommunicating, who's not hearing properly, who's not speaking properly, or kind of providing the right context. But yeah,
Yeah.
definitely lots of examples of that.
Yes, indeed, and I had a lot too. So during this context, when people are working remote and so on, communication is as it is, and we need to invest more time in that, and maybe expose our faces online, and not be, I don't know, afraid of doing that, to see people in the eyes too. How do you think the emotional intelligence has an impact on team dynamics and on people growth?
Oh, I think it has a huge impact, in from both sides, right? I think if you have a high EQ manager, they kind of can navigate and understand how you're feeling, or can kind of sense how you're reacting to different things, and then try different ways to kind of explore that. Um, I think if you don't have that high EQ, you kind of continually bash your way against the same uh, kind of problems. And the only thing that results in is attrition. You get people unhappy, leaving. They feel disconnected because no one understands them. And then their only option is to leave, to find a different place to kind of work and kind of have that solution, that kind of engagement. So I think high EQ helps you manage some of those kind of challenges and lets you try different ways of approaching the same person and understanding what motivates them, how do you get the best out of them, etc. As managers, um, and as teammates, right? So I think sometimes that's an oft forgotten part about the dynamics of an organization is you have peers. You spend more time with them than you do with anyone else. That's who you work with, how you get things done. You have your teammates underneath you who work for you and get things done. It's up and beyond. A lot of people just focus on managing upwards and getting everything that their boss wants done, and they don't realize that you actually have to keep these relationships strong across your peer network and your boss's peer network, or and across your teams as well. So I think EQ helps you manage all of those and understand people a little bit more.
Mm, yes, yes, and it has a huge impact on human relationships, team relationships, and team performance in the long run, because it's an important part of our relationships in the end, because that are what are we doing. And speaking of that, if you were to be a mentor, and I am pretty sure you are a mentor of someone just right now. What advices would you prioritize in their growth?
It's a kind of really big question because you know the mentor mentee relationship. Sometimes people reach out to you because they want specific mentorship on specific problems, and I think you've got that obligation to try and give them what they need, etc. And sometimes you also have that obligation to give them what they actually need but don't know that they want, etc. So I'm going to focus on that second part. I think everyone needs to understand that um, it's one thing to be very good technically and kind of be a really good technologist, etc. But that's not how you get things done. It's how you work with other people, how you kind of are collaborative, how you can kind of communicate, etc. So I think if there was any advice I'd just give to everyone is work on um, how do you collaborate and get people to do things that you want them to do without being their boss, without being their manager. Like if you can perfect that skill set of getting people to follow you and to you communicate what you want and things like that across that without telling them they have to do it because you're their boss. That's a skill set that's going to serve you well across every company, every organization, every job. And it sets you up to be a good manager because you're understanding how to get the best out of people without this hierarchy of I'm your boss. Do it because I told you to. Um, and it sets you up for being a good parent sometime down the line. I find myself telling my kids, you know, do this because I told you to. But it's yeah, I think that opportunity of finding how to understand people enough that and communicate well enough and motivate them without a managerial kind of oversight of them. It's not a skill set that everyone has.
How hard do you think is to get those type of skills?
It's incredibly hard to learn that because you actually have to spend time perfecting it in terms of understanding what motivates people, understanding things like that, and it takes time to kind of. Some people are born with it in terms of natural charisma and motivation to kind of be able to do that. But for people who don't have it, and a lot of technologists, like the certainty of technology doing what they tell it to do because you programmed it and then bug fixing it, it's a bit more of a challenge where people react differently and you have to try to figure out why they reacted differently, etc. So, and it's people are interesting people, right? I've never met someone that's exactly the same.
No, no. We came from different background. We have different. I don't know. We had different education, different families, different parents. They transmit a different set of values. That it's hard to find two people that have the same set of values of education, of emotional intelligence skills, self-awareness, empathy, communication type. I mean, you cannot have that in terms of either you start with two people that to develop those skills, leadership skills, emotional intelligence, and so on. One will be different than the other because everyone has his own style. We have our own triggers, and to know ourselves is the base of everything we are doing after that. It's the base of the emotional intelligence, and the research done by Daniel Goleman, the father of emotional intelligence, or the one that spread the word about emotional intelligence, is that it's a better predictor for someone who has better EQ in terms of career success and so on, rather than having a bigger IQ. So emotional intelligence is a better predictor for success than the IQ. And I've also done a study on that in university for my license to see the difference. And yeah, there were differences between people because it helps you have resilience, give yourself the intrinsic motivation and not the external one, right? All these things help you to get into what you want, to be better, to continuously learn, to help others, to have empathy, to be patient and to communicate, listen, and so on. So there are a lot of factors, and being a good leader needs to have uh, an entire skill set that will help you together with the business one.
Absolutely. There was something you mentioned there about, understanding yourself is like the backbone of that. And, for anyone who's been in any big corporate, they spend so much time in when you move into these leadership positions about making sure that you do all these different personality types, leadership kind of tests, and all of that is kind of really the first part is always about focused on how do you perceive yourself compared to how do other people perceive yourself or perceive you. And I think it's always fascinating, the first time you do this, it's always a shock. You're like, oh, I'm this amazing person. And then you realize, hey, people don't see me like that or see me in the same way because of the behaviors I act and all that kind of stuff. And I think that's part of leadership and high EQ is you start to have this empathy, not just for how you want to be perceived, but how your behaviors impact how others perceive you. And you kind of have that insight of, yeah, I got to put myself into that other person's shoes and see how, with the way I say things or act sometimes, how they will receive that. And that makes you a good leader over time is being able to put yourself into other people's shoes.
Yeah, for many managers, when they first have a 360 report done from their organization, it's a shock because they don't see it coming. They they just don't. Many people in the management positions are having a lot of self trust, are having self confidence, and so on. So they are into more narcissistic type of personality, to say like that, and not in the bad ways. Maybe it's it's they are good, they have good intentions about the people, about the organization, they have vision and so on. But when it comes to people relationships, when it comes to how you make the people feel, well, that's another story. And that's when the big shock came when they had a 360 report. So yes.
Yeah, it's a huge shock for the first time, and I think sometimes people are pretty happy with it, and sometimes most of the time they're not. But yeah, I definitely think doing those kind of assessments and getting to know yourself sets the baseline. If you're comparing it to how you think of yourself compared to how others perceive you, um, I don't think people sometimes get that kind of connection of, you know, they don't know the real you. They can only see what they see in your actions. And in modern organizations, that's the way you write emails, the way you respond to Slack. So yeah,
But it could be it could be the vice versa when people lack self trust, self confidence, and they see themselves way below others see them because either they have something so called the imposter syndrome or something like that. They don't feel like they do enough or are enough for that company, although they are over qualified and they're overworking and doing everything for everyone, and the other people perceive them way better than they perceive themselves, just because of those trails. So it happens the other way.
Yeah, definitely that imposter syndrome in cybersecurity is a huge challenge where we don't have enough people working in the careers in the industry, and then we write you know these job descriptions that ask for people with things that are unattainable, and then we have the narcissistic persons applying for those jobs, and the other ones who we really want to kind of do realizing, oh no, I can't do that job, even though they would be perfect for it.
Yes, yes, you have seen that. Yes, different type of personalities, and knowing different how personalities are different, and the impact might have in their actual role, it's very important, because taking and making a personality profile and putting and matching with the role description and what they need to have as skills and type, it's a good thing to have in a company, the people with those skills. And I have a quick question for you. If you were to have dinner with someone in the tech industry, dead or alive, who it will be and why?
Oh, interesting. Um, it's a kind of great question. I think I've been fortunate to meet a lot of folks in the security industry uh, across that. I think there's a few different people that kind of come to mind off the top of my head. I think um, there is um, probably someone I kind of respect for their ethical kind of background and their approach that they have. I'm not sure if you followed the Twitter whistleblower case probably about 2 years ago. The the former head of Twitter security was a kind of infamous or famous hacker called Mudge, Peter Zlatko. I'd love to spend some time with him and kind of just pick his brain, because he comes across as a very ethical kind of person who's willing to put his career on the line, etc. And he's now kind of done that at Twitter, where he's kind of raised a whistleblower case. I think he would be a fascinating person to chat about his motivations and why he did certain things, and kind of his view, as well as being someone who's technically very astute.
And now a question for you: what do you need to make this happen?
Uh, I'll probably just have to reach out to him on Twitter and kind of say,
Indeed.
let's catch up and try.
I'm pretty sure you never know where it goes. So why not try if you want? Yeah, thank you for your answer, and it demonstrates me that people have different sees different things. So I have a lot of answers on these questions, starting from Nikola Tesla until Steve Jobs, Elon Musk, and so on. And yeah, people have different interests and sees something in person, but if he's alive and you want to do it, then
Yeah,
what's stopping you to do
it's
that?
it's a bit easier than resurrecting Nikola Tesla from the dead.
Indeed. Yes. Well, if you were to recommend book, resource, I don't know, something that influenced your career, your growth, what it would be?
I've just finished reading a great book. It's written. I'll have to dig out the name, but it was recommended by someone in the security space, and it was all about leadership and how to, based on the All Blacks, which is a very famous team, rugby team, etc. Depending on where in the world you are, you might not know them. Um, I think it's called Legacy, and it's a leadership book that kind of digs into what are the principles that the All Blacks instilled in their culture, on how they approach creating this culture of a team and the cohesion between the team, and things like that. And it covers some really interesting concepts of like clean the sheds, which is the All Blacks. No matter how famous the individuals became, they always clean their own locker rooms. Like they don't let someone else do it for them. They take care of their own things, do the small things right. Um, and then there's a lot of kind of focus on player-led coaching. So getting the teams themselves, the people within the teams, to decide how they're going to improve, what they focus on, etc. So I think there's a lot of valuable lessons I got out of that book about how to instill culture, high performance culture in a team by leveraging some of those kind of philosophies and rules that they put in place in the All Blacks. So you read it as well, obviously.
Yeah, and I've also discussed with people in tech who were and have done performance sports in when they were young, and they said being in a team and playing in the team brings you a lot of discipline and a lot of team spirit, to say like that. And we work together, pull hard, and have everything together or fail together in the
Yeah, I think it's interesting because in cybersecurity, sometimes there's what they've called the superhero culture, where some people like to kind of get into some security roles because they want to be the hero. They want to save the job and kind of stop the bad guy, and they'll be like, "I did it," which is kind of very rewarding, personally motivating. Oh yeah, I'm exceptional. I saved the day. But that's if you did that in a team, you would be the goal scorer in soccer, and your teams might still lose. And then you start to kind of play that back in kind of different things of actually we need to play as a team and things like that. So I think there's a lot of lessons from seeing your organization as a team sport rather than an individual's glory. Or
yes, yes, and it this way of thinking, mindset of thinking ourselves as being part of a group, being part of a community, being part of a team, working together, having a lot of things done together, it also helped us rather than being just an individual working for himself in the long run. But of course, the team is made by individuals, and each individual has to be better than yesterday in order to help himself and also the team. So it's not just about I'm in the team, so we're doing everything together, but it's also how we develop ourselves to help the team.
yeah. It's easy, right? It's easy. We've got all the solutions to make everyone better.
Yes. Yeah. So as we're coming to an end, I don't know. There is a final word for you, from you, that the audience needs to be after this episode.
Well, I think it's you can find me on Twitter, you can find me on LinkedIn. I think the my door is always open to good connections, etc. And if you're interested in symmetry, symmetrysystems.com, you can kind of find us on there as well. But yeah, personally, I'm available to kind of chat to people, and if they are interested in finding out more about me, they know where to find me. But Dan, really appreciate you having on me. It's been a fun chat. So thanks so much.
Thank you. How and now it was a question for me and for you, for us. How did you feel today in our episode?
It feels like I was having a good chat with a good friend about everything for the past 20 years of my career, kind of looking back at some fun things and some hard times and kind of sharing those. So it's been a lot of fun chatting away and reminding myself on how old I am.
Well, experienced.
Oh, yeah, yeah, that's it. Experience.
Okay, thank you very very much, Claude. And that's a wrap for today's episode of Vibe It Up. I hope you enjoyed our insightful conversation with Claude. And before we go, I want to extend a big thank you to our guest for sharing his valuable experience and perspectives. So, if you, our listener, have been inspired or have burning questions after this episode, I encourage you to connect with us. So, thank you again, Claude. And it was a very nice talk and a great episode and discussion. Thank you very much.